Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 11 of Apple TV's Ted Lasso, entitled Midnight Train to Royston. Another great episode. We did a great job of furthering the plot. I know people were a little upset with the diversions with the Christmas episode and the Beard episode. I know they're controversial, but we're right back on our storyline path, and I feel like a lot of the relationships that have kind of look like they're heading in the wrong direction have officially headed in the wrong direction. We have a lot of relationships that are very brittle right now, that are starting to look like they're going to end up in pretty bad places next week. Hopefully, we'll end with something positive, but I'm expecting a whole lot of heartbreak and some disappointment heading into the finale next week. So, what I'm going to do with this episode, I'm going to talk about it a little bit differently. I'm going to talk about the various relationships that kind of met their breaking points this week, and talk about maybe where they go going forward, and just what the experience of seeing them reach these points this week was like. So I'm going to start off with Sam and Rebecca. Sam was offered a role on a soccer team in Africa by this big billionaire tech guy, and he preaches a lot of things that Sam likes. He wants Sam as a person, not as a footballer. He respects his politics. He wants to do things to help improve Africa's standing in the world. Thinks they'll win the World Cup soon, and he thinks that Sam will be the centerpiece in the face of this. And that's got to be a great opportunity for Sam, because we know that Sam wants to please his father as it pertains to things like doing not just doing the right thing, but doing things that are for the betterment of others. He has a father who's very strict on making sure, not strict, but it's important to Sam's father that Sam not do things that will shame himself and his family by aligning himself with things that are just impure or improper. So Sam has that chip on his shoulder that he wants to be doing things that help improve the world. And that's a big deal to Sam. And that's what this billionaire tech guy is offering Sam, is the ability to do that and to help put his home nation on the map. And that's got to be really tempting for a guy who was just kind of broken up with by his woman that he fell in love with. And we see Rebecca grappling with this, I can't ask him to stay. I can't, make him go. There's got to be his own thing. And she has to come to grips with how she feels about him leaving. When like I said, she's the one who just said, I don't think, we should be together right now. We should take a pause, and I need to reflect on this and all that. To say that and then have immediately be confronted with the possibility of having that person taken away has to change up your priorities, because you say those sorts of things when you feel like you have time, and then when you realize that you don't, those priorities change. And we see Rebecca at the end of the episode at Sam's place, and she tells him, what I just said, I don't want you to leave. I mean, I can't stop you from leaving. I can't, recommend things one way or another, but I'm just going to say that I hope you don't go. And then very sadly, she says, I'm going to leave now. And Sam says nothing. He doesn't stop her. He doesn't say bye. He just lets her leave. And this is the storyline where I think we might still get the happy ending. I feel like Sam might stay, because Sam is also a romantic. So I could see Sam looking like, I could do all these great things with this team, but, I'm going to stay with her. But I can also see Sam going, being pragmatic about it. Like, I can do great things for the world. I can do great things for my country. I can help be the centerpiece of a team that we build from the ground up. And I'm going to give all that up for a woman who's not even sure she wants to be with me yet. So a really tough spot for Sam, a really tough spot for Rebecca. She put herself out there. It would suck if Sam decides to leave, because now that puts Rebecca in a place where we spent all of last season watching her grapple with her situation with Rupert. She spends most of this season on dating apps and trying to find love. She ends up in a situation where she finds someone that she really cares about. It turns out to be not just a much younger guy, but a guy on the team that she owns. And she puts that aside for for love. It says I'm going to be with this guy because we're really feeling each other. Makes that decision I don't know if this is going to work. I need some time to think. This is really hard for me. And then after all that, could potentially lose him because of that last little decision. So really interesting things happening with Sam and Rebecca. It could go either way. It really could. And either way, it's gonna be good. We know that. So Keely and Roy this week we saw a couple of interesting things. We saw her go to this, I don't know, I don't even know what they call it, like where they, I think she was prepping wardrobe for a campaign or something that she was working on, and Nate tags along. He wants to buy a suit. Nate, she gives him like what I think is pretty good advice from her perspective on how you should handle certain situations, but it sounded like her advice was essentially pushing Nate to become the man in charge. I'll talk about Nate a little bit later. But in this sequence, Nate kisses her, which was a very odd situation. But you could kind of see that this happening with her like that close to his face, giving him the advice that we know he wants to hear because he kept asking over and over. So he kisses her. We see Roy having an uncomfortably comfortable moment, or apparently 3 hours of moment with Phoebe's teacher, where he's had every opportunity to leave. He stays. He doesn't flirt with her. He's not trying to do anything, but in every opportunity he had to let the teacher know that he was not available, he passed on it. And when you share those really good moments like that, and things have been a little rocky with Keeley, you can see him in a situation where he starts to get a little comfortable. But he does the right thing and he confesses to her what happened. But that exchange was tough to watch because they're there to have this photo shoot. Keeley starts with Nate kissed me, which is like, okay, that's not her fault. He might not like it. He's probably gonna beat the shit out of Nate in the first opportunity that he gets. But that's not Keeley's fault. So she starts kind of light, like, hey, there's this thing, this happened. I thought you should know about it. He escalates big time by telling her what happened with the teacher, which was nothing but, when you hear that, I spent 3 hours with her and she asked me if I was married and all I said was no. I didn't elaborate and I don't know why I did that. That's a loaded fucking statement. Like, that's the kind of statement where you sit down and reevaluate your relationship. You have to have a serious fucking uncomfortable and bad conversation after someone divulges that kind of news. But then she goes even farther. Well, I'm not going to say even farther because this isn't something that she did, but she tells him about Jamie confessing his love to her. And I think, they share, I don't want to say share a moment because it makes it sound positive, but they pause and they're looking at each other. Roy looks very upset. And I think it's because he could tell in this exchange, this isn't just Keeley saying, hey, Jamie said this to me in the same way that she said, hey, Nate kissed me. Because it was kind of like, here's some information about something that happened. And you could tell it was from a place of like, I ain't had nothing to do with this. He was being way too fucking extra, but I thought you should know. Whereas the Jamie confesses love to me thing sounded more of a, it mattered to me kind of situation. So it's that she didn't say it, but the way she said it kind of came off as like, Jamie confesses love to me and that meant something to me. And you could see that Roy took it that way. That hurt him, and that was a rough scene because they turned back around. It looked to me like Roy had tears welling up in his eyes, which is tough to watch. But yeah, I said last week that I didn't like the direction that their relationship was going. It looked like it was going to end badly for them. But I mean, the show's been setting it up. They setting it up from jump. They brought Jamie. They had that portion where Jamie was kind of like stalking her and shit at the beginning. Then Jamie comes back to the team. He confesses it was for her. He tells her that he loves her. And they've been really setting up this thing where it's like, okay, Jamie versus Roy again. Like, is she going to take Jamie back, even though Jamie was a piece of shit, but now seems like he might be a decent guy? Is she going to take Jamie back, go for the young guy that she was kind of always into, and this is just a relationship that's kind of run its course for them? And we also see that they've been steadily building this Roy and Phoebe's teacher thing. Like, I've sensed chemistry there with them from the first moment that he went to the classroom and talked to her. So there's been a slow build on that relationship that kind of culminated last night. I watched it last night. If you watched it this morning or today, ignore that. But that kind of culminated there, and that looks like it. They've been setting this up. It looks like Keeley's probably going to end up with Jamie again. Which how do you freshen that up since we already saw it? And Roy's going to end up with Phoebe's teacher. And yeah, that's gonna be that breakup's gonna be tough to watch next week, but that's probably where we're headed. Another tough thing to watch: Ted and Sharon this week. Sharon leaves She was supposed to be leaving on Friday, I think it was. He had, I don't know if they specified a day. No, we'll call it Friday, since that's usually someone's last day. And Ted had a whole thing planned for her. Comes in on, I believe it was Wednesday, because I think Higgins said 2 days early. And Sharon had already left. She hadn't said goodbye, but she had left notes. Ted tracks her down. He's pissed. He kind of goes in on her, like, how the fuck did you do that kind of energy? And the whole time they're talking, she's just like, it's all in the letter. It's on the letter. Ted's like, I don't give a fuck about this letter. Like, he's so dismissive of the letter. And then in a great scene, he reads the letter and he's kind of starting off like, and then you could tell she starts to say some very impactful and profound things. And you see him get quiet. He gets serious. His eyes start welling up. And he looks really touched by this. And I like the fact that we didn't find out what was said. Because I find it intriguing that two imaginary characters have shared a moment that only they know about and we don't know about. Because it's interesting. Like, if we know about it, it almost kind of, it opens up it's a reminder of the fact that we are involved in this show. But it feels like the characters contained within the show had their own moment within it, and even we aren't privy to it. Because most shows, I mean, the audience is privy to everything. That's the point. But I don't know, there's something beautiful about the idea that these two fictional characters within this world shared a moment that only they know about, and even the audience was left out of what was said in that letter. I think that's kind of nice. I kind of like not knowing about it. Maybe we'll find out what was said. I don't care though. I don't need to know. I thought that was a very nice moment. And so Sharon and Ted go out and have beers. They have drinks, and Ted leaves her by saying he has to go to the bathroom or the loo, and his favorite Diamond Phillips and his favorite name for the bathroom. And he leaves her a note that just says goodbye, and he leaves one of his army guys in her drink. So that was a nice send off for them. But lastly is the final relationship that looks like it's at its brink right here is Nate versus everybody the fuck else. Nate spent all season being a piece of shit to everybody ever since he got his opportunity. And Nate doesn't like this version of him, but this version of him gets shit done. This version of him found success in the game. This version of him was able to impress his father, but he spits on this version of him. He doesn't like it, but it's kind of like, okay, spit on you, but this is the guy that we got to be right now to get what we want to get done. He's very ambitious. Nate he spent the whole episode saying, have you guys ever wanted to be in charge? But Nate's corrupted. He's disrespectful. He's rude. Ted leaves the room, and one of the things I hate, Ted leaves the room. He's just like, yeah, he's just gonna take my idea and take credit for it. That's just what he does, right? Shit talking Ted behind his back. And I don't have a problem with shit talking somebody behind their back. Like, sometimes motherfuckers need that. I'm saying need it because they don't know about it, but sometimes motherfuckers need that in the sense of, like, you need to get something off of your chest about someone and you might not want to say it to them. But Ted is not that kind of guy. Like, you don't shit talk somebody like Ted behind their back. Somebody who's always good to you, somebody who always treated you well, somebody who defended you and brought you up when you were just the guy that the team was mistreating. You get a job on the team. All this, Ted did everything for you, and you just shit on him behind his back like a coward. Like, that kind of shit is terrible. But Nate has done everything this season to pit himself against us, the audience, and everyone on the show, and that culminates with Trent sending Ted a text that outlines this article that's going to come out that basically reveals that he had a panic attack instead of what he food poisoning is what he said. That he actually had a panic attack, and he says, because I respect you, which I think is a really great moment in and of itself by text, because we know the way that Trent and Ted have, especially in season 1, kind of went at each other. And for Ted to reveal Trent to reveal his source like that does show a great deal of respect for Ted. And Nate, I think this is Nate's worst act. And like, it's not just what I said about the fact that he's shit talked somebody who's been so great to him behind his back, but if Nate wants to be in charge, I'm assuming that Rupert probably offered Nate a job last week. If Nate wants to be in charge, he could just take the job that Rupert offered him and leave. Why does he have to drag down Ted in the process? That's the part that fucks me up, because that doesn't help Nate in any kind of way to bring Ted down unless he wants to take over the head coaching role on this team, which that's not going to go over well with anybody. So Nate has painted himself as the villain this week, and well, every week, but really he did his he did his final blow. He became Darth Vader this week, and Jason Sudeikis said this season was like Empire Strikes Back, and it looks like that's where we're going to be heading next week. So, wrapping up, I want to talk about a couple of the moments that I really liked here. I love the NSYNC dance number that they were doing to prepare for Sharon. I especially like Jason Sudeikis doing doing the move first and showing it to him with like all that energy and emphasis. I don't know what it is, but him dancing with that level of energy, but still being like good at it, is so entertaining for me to watch. Like the famous moment from the first episode of the first season where he's like dancing in the locker room and stuff. Like I love those scenes. Like I don't know what it is, but he's like good at it, but he's like super like aggressive with it. And it's because he's just so full of life and energy, and I think that's dope. I love when, and this is a big moment too that falls out of my whole thing about relationships, but it is a big moment when Rebecca tells Ted that about Sam. And I like how he said this time last year, you told me some other heavy info too. And she says, see you next year. I like that callback to season 1. I like the possible foreshadowing that she's going to have something shitty to say to him at the penultimate episode next season. But she tells Ted about Sam. He goes, Sam. She says, Sam. She says, Ewell Jackson. I thought that was hilarious. I love the billionaire tech guy not shaking hands with Ted, saying like I don't do that, and having some other guy come shake hands with him, and then does like this like cool dap with Sam, like and then Ted's reaction to it, the look on his face after he sees it, I thought that was great. And then lastly, I really liked when the tech guy is taking Sam on this tour, and he runs across this slovenly middle-aged man who seems kind of bumbling or whatever. And he introduces them to each other, and they continue on. And he's like, "Yeah, that was Banksy." Like, what the fuck? That was Banksy. And he looks and he's like knocking over paint cans, or whatever the fuck he was doing. I thought that was great. So I'm gonna wrap this one up. What an episode! Let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know where you think these storylines are going, and I'll see you guys next week for the season 2 finale. Peace.